All right, guys. Big video here today. Here with Easton Freeze from A to Z Sports. Before we get into it, I just want to say prayers out to Chris Johnson and his family. The ALS diagnosis was uh, crushing, shocking. I'm gonna leave a link in the description of this video where you can go donate and just show support to ALS and like everyone suffering through the terrible disease. And then secondly, if you haven't seen my interview with Tyren Montgomery yet, make sure to go check that out. Easton also did a great article that I'll link below. So thank you for that, Easton.
No, thank you. That was great. It was a great get. It was good
Thank you.
stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. So we're gonna get right into it. Speaking of Tyren Montgomery, Easton, this might be the deepest wide receiver room the Titans have had in a few years. This is a very talent-wise, a very deep wide receiver room. How do you see this whole receiver room like shaking up throughout a training camp?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that it's the most confidence I've had in the depth of this room in as long as I can remember, which is a good thing. And it's really buoyed by the investments they made on day three in Mike Borgonzi's first draft class. But pushing those guys down the depth chart this year with shoring up the Calvin Ridley contract and bringing in Carnell Tate and paying Wan'Dale Robinson, like you really built out the top and the bottom of this wide receiver room over a two player acquisition cycle span. And so, um, you know, you've covered a couple of off seasons. You know that around this time each year, we start to talk about the wide receiver competition, and we don't actually pay a ton of attention to the obvious starters in
Mhm.
August. We're talking about wide receiver 4 and 5 and 6, and maybe there's a wide receiver 7. In the past, half decades worth of off seasons for the Titans have been talking about 3 or 4 spots up for grabs. And this year, it's really just kind of one, maybe 2 spots up for grabs because we know that Carnell and Wandale and Ridley and Ellick and Shim are all definitely on the roster. There's 5 spots there, and this team is not going to keep more than 6, maybe 7 wide receivers on the active roster. And those last 2 spots are going to be guys that are needed most on special teams, especially with how much viable on-field offensive talent those first 5 guys have. A 5-man rotation there, unless somebody, God forbid, gets hurt, is going to be just about all you need. That sixth guy will, probably be in there just a little bit, but that's the kind of guy that gets, 2 or 3 or 5 snaps on offense in a game. So it's really just a core special teamer. And
Yeah.
that's why Bryce Oliver is the guy that I have earmarked for that sixth and maybe final spot.
Hmm.
But it's really kind of a 3-man race for 1 or 2 spots. It's Bryce Oliver who has easily the best special teams chops. It is Osborne, KJ Osborne, who they brought in and is kind of narratively fitting that James Prochet role of wily veteran they bring in. And every practice you're looking up like, man, they're using him and he's doing stuff and he clearly can play receiver. And he's as an actual receiver and not a special teamer. Osborne has a much more proven track record than Prochet did because he had in a 3 season span with the Vikings, he had like 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns or something, like a very productive, useful player on that team. So he's done it before. And so I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be hard to cut. But where do you fit him in when you already have 5 viable receivers? And then the last guy is Xavier Estrepo, just will not go away. He continues to prove himself at practice in a way that um, makes me wonder how viable he can be on special teams because he's going to have to be to take that last spot. So that's kind of the full picture, speed running the entire conversation. Ultimately, it comes down to 1 or 2 spots for those 3 guys.
Mm. Yeah, so another position group that I'm very interested in is the running back room. You have Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears coming back, obviously. Julius Chestnut's in there still as well. And then the wild card's Nick Singleton. How do you see that group shaking out?
Yeah, and I've been meaning to like do a deep dive on both Sala and Dable depth charts from the past however many years they've been in a position to impact a depth chart to look at how many running backs they typically keep. I know that in the most recent Dable history, it will make sense for this team to keep 4 running backs.
Hmm.
And again, that fourth guy is a special teams role. So we really, it's funny. They do special teams periods usually at the beginning of the practice. It's kind of when everybody's still settling in. And it's one of the early kind of peek behind the curtain. It's one of the early shoot periods for us as media. We only get a small window to actually shoot individual drills and some warm up drills and stuff. And usually the special teams period is like happening on one field with the majority of the players, and then the quarterbacks and some of the veteran receivers or some of the veteran defensive linemen are like doing their own senior level stuff off to the side, and we're allowed to shoot that. But we're not allowed to shoot the special teams period. And so it's very easy for us to get distracted and watch those guys and shoot them for content
Yeah.
than watch the objectively kind of boring special teams period because
Mhm.
it's like, special teams. What are we doing? But uh, it's going to be important for us to pay attention to those
Yeah.
for these couple of end of depth chart position battles to see like who's getting used, where are they getting used, where are they rotating on the depth chart,
Yeah.
and I what's interesting to me is obviously they did not draft Nick Singleton to not have him on the roster.
Yeah.
So he's going to be on the roster. I think he's going to be the third running back on this team. Khalil Mullings is a guy they drafted last year, and at the end of the year when everything was already boring and no one was watching the Titans, he finally started to do some things after an injury ravaged situation. And it was enough for me to go, interesting. I wonder what he'll look like in year 2 if he can stay healthy. But because they have him and then they draft Singleton and then they bring in Michael Carter, who was a rookie draft pick of Robert Sala's in New York, and he's a veteran, and you didn't bring him in for no reason, you'd imagine. It's like, okay, is Khalil Mullings kind of getting the boot here? What's going on? To swing back to the actual top of the depth chart, which is going to impact Sundays, Robert Sala said it himself, and I'm glad that he did so that we can kind of throw a little water on the fire here. Nick Singleton broke his foot in January. He is back fully healthy now. But he's also a guy that was drafted as late as he was, not entirely because of the injured foot. It was also because he had an unbelievable start to his career in college, was rookie of the year, and put up I think record numbers. Don't quote
Yeah.
me on that. I think he broke some records
Yeah.
for his school that year. And then he was a fine player as a sophomore and a junior and a senior, but it kind of trailed off a little bit, and then he started to split responsibilities, and it's really the vision for him that's the biggest question.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say it's impossible to develop vision at the NFL level, but it's a situation that kind of rhymes with the quarterback accuracy conversation, where it's like you can do it. It requires a lot of fundamental training. The
Hmm.
vision thing is more cerebral than the accuracy thing is.
Yeah.
And I won't pretend to be a big enough running back expert to say for sure that that's a thing that we see happen for many guys. So I don't know what he can be. What he's gearing up for is doing enough this year, whatever that looks like, to throw the biggest hat he possibly can into the ring for next year when they're probably reshaping the entire running back room. When
Yeah.
Tony Pollard's contract is up and they move off of him, when Tajay Spears' contract is up and they probably move on from him. There's going to be a free agent pool that the Titans are looking at heavily to spend big. There's going to be a draft that's a lot better. It should be, fingers crossed, a lot better running back draft than this last year. The bar is very low, so it should be a better group.
Yeah.
Um, and the Titans are going to feel compelled to invest strongly in that area because it's such a blank slate. It's Nick Singleton's job to do as much as he can in front of and behind the scenes this year to make Mike Borgonzi second guess every guy he looks at next spring.
Yeah. And then with camp coming up, who's like one guy you think could shock everyone and make the roster, and who's another guy who could be a surprise cut?
Great question. Um, could shock everyone and make the roster.
Hmm. If you had to just pick one.
No, I know. I'm trying to like pick an interesting one.
Yeah.
Um, it's tough when we haven't even seen him in pads yet because that's when you start
True.
to kind of get an inkling of who is rotating a little bit higher than you expect.
Hmm.
I mean, let's talk about the linebacker room because, and this isn't a perfect answer, but it's interesting to me. We know who the starting linebacker trio is. They're not all going to start, but like the three
Yeah.
guys that are fighting for the starting position: Cedric Gray, Anthony Hill, and Cody Barton. Behind them, and the linebacker is a sneaky, massive position for special teams
Yeah.
usage, right? These are guys that most often rotate on special teams in key roles, and um, that's where, so far this offseason, we have heard a lot of Dorian Mausi,
Hmm.
the second-year linebacker who was brought in last year and was a sneaky big special teamer throughout the year, was on the active roster, doing almost blocking punts. Um, this coaching staff really likes him.
Yeah.
I know that Bones Fossil really likes him. I see him being used in ways that make me think he's going to make the roster and once again be a bigger impact this year than folks realize. But
Hmm.
he's the fourth linebacker, and that may be kind of a surprise addition to the roster. what does that mean for James Williams,
Yeah.
who in his own right kind of fits the Saleh mold of college safety converted to linebacker? If you look at Saleh's recent history, especially with the Jets, he was maximizing linebacker safety converts in a way that nobody else in the league was. That was kind of his meta. He wanted guys with that specific skill set to play his linebacker position. And so I'd be shocked if he wasn't coming into Tennessee, thinking, what could I do with this guy? Let's see, let's
Yeah.
find out. And that's probably
Mhm.
his plan for the next month or the next 2 months once they get back here in a couple of weeks. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make the roster either, because at the end of the day, you need to be a special teams menace in those positions. Not to say that he can't be a good special teamer. He played special teams last year. They trusted him to do it at least some. But Mousie's a guy that they trust more. And if it comes down to the two of them, that could be kind of the flip flop there.
Yeah. And then do you expect this Peter Skoronsky extension to get done before camp?
I do. I mean, it's just such a no brainer. And
Yeah.
Mike Borgonzi does not strike me as the kind of guy that um, attended the Jerry Jones school of contract economics, where he seems to think if I just wait long enough, the market will correct itself and go back down. It's kind of like I'm in this stage of life where starting to like look around at real estate and consider, because my wife and I, we have a young child. We were renting. We're currently in the process of moving. Do we want to rent again? Do we want to buy? What's the buyer's market look like? I'd love to be a homeowner one day. And then
Mhm.
when you're looking into homeownership, you're looking around and you're like, I just need to wait until the market takes a turn in my favor. And you can tell yourself that. And you can be like, yeah, and in 2008, okay, cool. But in reality, except for like two times in all of American history, all real estate does is go up.
Yeah.
The best time to buy was yesterday. The second best time to buy is today. The
Yeah.
exact same thing applies to the NFL right now. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've noticed, but the salary cap is not going in the wrong direction. We
Nope.
had a we had a we had a it took a global pandemic that ruined the whole world for 3 years to make it dip just a little bit, and then it shot back up to unprecedented levels. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, in 2029, I believe the TV contracts are up. The NFL's executives are already pushing for uh, these negotiations to be accelerated. Like they're trying to get out of those contracts even earlier to say,
Mhm.
hey, TV companies, let's sign up now. Let's do it before 2029. Let's get that money locked in. And they have the leverage and the pressure to be able to do so. So when that happens, the salary cap will probably become an unfathomable number. And that
Mhm.
means everybody's getting more money. And so Skoronski, the only question is he a guy that you have any doubt at all in your heart or in your mind about wanting to keep him around as a Tennessee Titan? The answer, obviously, is no. So there is no excuse to wait. The only excuse up until just recently was, well, we're only doing one major contract at a time, and we've got the elder statesman Jeffrey Simmons, an
Mhm.
even more important contract to get done. Great, cool, you got it done. Now you have the next 2 months to get Skoronski's done, and you are in a race against the rest of the league because there are other high-profile interior offensive linemen who may very well get paid. We just saw a different position, but still interior offensive linemen. We just saw Tyler Linderbaum get $27 million a year in Vegas at center, blow the market out of the water. The highest paid guards come in under that. But Skoronski last year was playing elite pass protection, and he has been an Iron Man on the field. This is the other thing you got to consider. Well, do they actually stay on the field? Outside of a complete fluke appendectomy in his rookie year, Skoronski has never missed a game.
Mhm.
So you have no excuse not to make an example of him if you're Mike Borgonzi and say, hey, in Tennessee, when you come to Tennessee and you play well and you play consistently, we take care of you. We make you the highest paid or one of the highest paid players at your position. This is what we do to our guys. And that is the reputation you want if you're Mike Borgonzi for future free agencies and to keep your players happy. Like it's also a morale thing. So that's my 2 cents on it. Again, more than you asked for, but yes, it's going to get done. It has to get done
Yeah.
in the next 2 months.
What do you think the figure is going to be? Because I know Joe Tippmann just got, what was it, 4 years, 62. Obviously,
Something like that.
Pete's gonna get
Yeah.
more than that. You think he'll be the highest paid guard, or you think he'll just be like under that?
Yeah, and I wrote about this at A to Z Sports last week or the week before, I forget. The highest paid guard
Tyler
is
Smith, right?
Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Tyler Smith. Or no, it's not Tyler Smith. It is. Let's look it up.
I thought it was he was on 4 for 96, I thought, but I could be wrong.
I might be wrong. It's been 2 weeks, and I wrote it at the beach. If we're being totally honest, Trey Smith. Trey Smith. We just got the name
Oh,
wrong.
okay,
Trey
okay.
Smith was four
Oh,
for 94.
oh, okay, okay.
There is also a Tyler Smith.
Yeah.
Trey Smith in Kansas City. So that is what is that 23 and a half a year.
Hmm.
Yes, that is the highest paid guard. That was a contract signed, I believe, last summer, so it's a year old.
Hmm.
I am so certain that Skoronski and his camp are at the table as we speak, asking to be the highest paid. Hey, we want 25, we want 24, we want 23.75. And they are well within their right to do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
statistically speaking. I'm sure the Titans are, because there's, again, I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but there's kind of a hollowed out middle class between Smith at 23.5, and then I think the next closest guys are at 22 or 21 and a half or something like that. Like there's a little bit of a window for somebody to slot in just under. And I'm sure that's probably, I'm not sure, but I would bet that's where the Titans are coming in. Like, hey, how about we put you right here where there's this little opening? It's a lot of money. And in the end, the Titans have functionally infinity dollars still.
Mhm.
There's really no reason not to just do it. Again, we saw. Skoronski's camp is going to point to the Linderbaum thing and say, they just blew the market out of the freaking water.
Yeah.
It's going to happen again, and we'll just wait until it happens again if you don't give us the meager sum of an extra 1.5 mil a year or whatever it is to be just over. Today our ask is 24. It's just a half million over market. If the Tyler Linderbaum thing happens again for somebody, we might be coming to the table asking for 27, and
Yeah.
then you'll regret not signing now. So
Hmm.
I'd bet ultimately he gets that 24 nod, just sets the market a little bit. The Titans weren't afraid to do it with Simmons. They shouldn't be afraid to do it with Skoronski.
And then Skaronski at left guard, but then right guard is like a big question. Do you think they roll with what they have, or is it still
I do.
possible? No Kevin Zeitler? You don't think it's
No,
possible?
The Zeitler dream. I mean, I'm not gonna like stake my career on saying it's over. I have been for 2 months now. I have been given no reasons to think it isn't over, and I've been given a handful of reasons to think that it is over.
Hmm.
So I think they're rocking and rolling, and it's a big risk. I don't like it. I don't love their process, but I also think that there have been some things, and this is a much larger conversation. Like when you have as many needs as the Titans came into the offseason
Hmm.
with, you are bound to have external circumstances, excuse me, screw up your plans.
Hmm.
Like not everything is going to fall into place the way you were hoping to because you're like an octopus trying to delicately and play a game of operation with 8 different arms. And the one spot, unfortunately for the Titans, that pretty clearly got screwed up for them was that center market. And I think that extended to kind of the entire interior offensive line market. That
Hmm.
whole position is just booming right now in a way that I think front offices are trying to adjust for, but I'm not sure they're fully understanding the magnitude of the situation.
Yeah.
The more that these defenses continue to invest in the Jeffrey Simmonses and the John Franklin Myers of the world, trading, the 10th overall pick for an interior defensive lineman to come play in Cincinnati, like
Yeah.
this is the way that defenses are operating. They
Yeah.
are trying to crush your pocket because somebody recently realized the very bright notion, hey, it's awesome to have edge rush, and it's the easiest and most efficient way to get to the quarterback for one guy. But in terms of force multiplication, there's no more helpful thing to our edge rushers who may or may not be elite on our team. It's hard to find elite edge rushers.
Yeah.
There's no more helpful thing than a pocket that is crushed, flushing the quarterback out into the arms of our waiting edge rusher. And I think defenses kind of realized a market inefficiency like, oh, these teams are not investing in the interior offensive line the way that they should. A lot of them have clear weaknesses. Let us, instead of spending $10 quadrillion to try to find an elite edge rusher, let's just become the best interior lines in the world and then murder the inside of the line. And it's
Hmm.
working. And the Seahawks are winning a Super Bowl because they can do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, what were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about
The
the
right
right guard
guard.
position.
Yeah.
Right guard position. All of that is to say, the Titans got screwed at that position, I think, because of the market inefficiency. They are rolling with what they have. I do not like it. It scares me. But the last kind of fundamental thing I'll say is, as a GM, you have to put your foot down at some point when it comes to veteran band-aids, and especially at a position like offensive line. These guys will tell you. I mean, we spent the entire last month of padless offseason with coaches at the podium, kind of dancing around the fact that it's like, especially for these linemen, until you get in pads, there's just nothing you can do. They're not,
Hmm.
they're learning, they're conditioning, which the conditioning is the biggest part, obviously. They're learning some technique. They're getting to know each other. But you're not really evaluating and you're not really developing until you get the pads on and you can hit somebody.
Hmm.
You're also really not super developing until you play in games. Like you got to have the actual Sunday reps to become a starter.
Yeah.
And at some point, if you want your young, cost controlled, options to become that guy, you have to take the leap of faith and give them those reps, or they're not going to. You cannot sit them on the bench forever and hope that they magically become what you want them to become. Some of them need time, some of them need a year, whatever it is. But if you continue to slap expensive stopgap veteran band-aids on the position, you're never going to take hold of your hopeful long-term future. And so
Hmm.
that's obviously what he's trying to do. I wish him the best of luck. It certainly is a leap of faith because it scares the crap out of me. But we'll see. I also don't ask me who it's going to be because I don't know.
I was just about to ask you
I
that.
don't know. It's either going to be
Slater,
uh, Slater or Cordell Volson. Like I would bet on it being one of those two guys. I don't know
Cor
which.
Cordero Wilson
If
scares
you
me,
made
bro.
me at gunpoint pick one, I would guess Slater gets the nod, but I don't feel awesome about it.
Cordell Wilson scares me. I do not want to see that man as my starting right guard protecting Cam Ward.
It's just been a long time since we've seen him play, so like you don't know
Yeah,
what you're getting.
yeah,
It's terrifying mystery box.
yeah. So, and then center as well. I mean, is it going to be Schlottman? Is that like
Yeah, I
leading the
think Slotman
slot
will be
in?
the guy.
Hmm.
All indications. I mean, I would be very, very surprised at this point if Slotman
Yeah,
wasn't the guy.
yeah.
Is he the right pick? We will see.
Hmm.
Maybe he pans out. Like I think the realistic best case scenario is that he is just your new version of Corey Levin, who we saw step in and play a handful of games last
Yeah,
year very admirably,
yeah.
and it was serviceable. The thing about 11 prototype of swing interior player, which is incredibly valuable to have, and it's a shame that he is gone because I think that he's an awesome. I think he's a credit to any team that he's on. That kind of guy is awesome in a 2 or 3 week span, maybe a month, month and a half. But the reason why they're not an NFL starter is because they aren't skilled enough or built in a way that makes sense for them to play a full 17 game slate.
Hmm.
And as much as I love Corey Levin, I am skeptical that if you rolled with him as your full 17 game starter and put him through the triage of a season, that it would go as well as it looked in the 2 or 3 games in a row we got, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
he's great coming in as a fresh body, as a reliever out of the bullpen, but he's not a starting pitcher for a reason, is kind of the analogy there. With Sloatman, if that's the case for him, I worry that they've made a miscalculation about his ability to go from being a bullpen closer to being a starting pitcher. I believe in him as that. Like if they had a guy that was the clear starter and Sloatman was their backup that they kind of replaced Levin with, I would
Hmm.
be super jazzed about it. I think it's a great addition.
Yeah,
I feel really comfortable,
yeah.
but they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And then you have the edge rusher room. We know that Saul is going to be using a lot of rotations. He's done it throughout his career. I'd say Jermaine Johnson's going to be one of the starters. I think that's pretty
Hmm.
straightforward. Do you think it's going to be a rotation of like Femi, Keldrick Falk, and like what do you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, I do think that we will see all three of those guys in the field at a high clip. I think that Jermaine will get the most snaps of them. With Falk, it's hard to talk about him in the conversation with these guys because he's really gonna. It's him and John Franklin Myers. They're gonna kind of be rotating
Yeah, yeah.
as that. So with Salah, like for depth chart purposes, right? With
Mhm.
Salah's team, and I asked him this explicitly on the last day. I pulled him aside, and he said, "There's 3 positions. There's interior defensive line, there's big end, and there's rush end. That
Yeah.
big end guy is the only guy that's really going to be moving positions. Everybody else is going
Okay.
to stick to their role.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to see a lot of Jeffrey Simmons on the edge or anything. But that big end is the John Franklin Myerses and the Keldrick Falks who are going
Yeah.
to be on the outside on early downs and on the inside on rush downs. And those rush ends are who are going to be on the outside on the money downs on the rush downs.
Yeah.
And so at the rush end spot, I think the starters, again, if we're doing a depth chart on paper right now, the starters are Femi and Jermaine, and the big end starter is obviously John Franklin Myers with Keldrick Falk right behind him,
Hmm.
and then you've got some other guys like Solomon Thomas and Jordan Elliott, and these guys are behind Simmons at the interior defensive line position. So that's kind of how that shakes out.
Oh, okay. So, and then we heard a lot about Cam Ward at OTAs. I think it's the most overblown story I've seen uh with like the Titans in a while. I mean, I think it's only one person who's overblown it. We didn't name him, but if you had to give an honest assessment, how do you think Cam looked throughout the summer, and what are your expectations for year two?
I think Cam looked. What word should I choose? I think he looked fine. He did not inspire me,
Hmm.
which I wasn't necessarily like expecting a guy to like blow me. I mean, again, I was talking to one coach with a different team about kind of the whole narrative situation and how the spring goes and what actually matters to the coaches. And his point to me that was kind of like a an aha moment was he told me like go like look around the league. What team media is talking just glowingly about their quarterback right now? Everybody's either fine, making some cool plays, but otherwise fine, or they're like, oh no, are they dead? Are they struggling? Like it's just not a situation that lends itself to guys really blowing up the mini camp and OTAs scene. That being said, you want to see consistency from a second year quarterback in Cam Ward. You're hoping, at every time we go and see him, we're looking for proof of steps forward. And we didn't really see that in OTAs, but we
Hmm.
definitely saw it in mandatory minicamp. So he finished on a strong note. Those last 2 weeks, it was like he had three pretty poor practices in the penultimate week, and then on the final week, he had two quite good practices.
Hmm.
None of it was a disaster. None of it was unbelievable. It was
Hmm.
all kind of just like right in that window of reasonable outcomes of a practice. And it's the boring answer, but it's true. He's learning a new offense. He's learning a lot of new players. He's learning his new coaches.
Hmm.
He is trying to take steps forward mechanically. Like he's good juggling a lot of stuff right now.
Hmm.
That's not an excuse, but it is a reason I think
Yeah.
for why it was clunkier. He needs to take steps in August, and I try to approach the entire offseason as like a weatherman measuring climate and not weather. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like I'm looking for long-term trends. I'm not looking to overreact to a thunderstorm or a gorgeous sunny day on any one day. And I want to, by the end of August, be able to look at my weatherman map and say, hey, look at how the weather is trending in the right direction for Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So that's what will matter to me.
Yeah. And then a few more questions here. So you were there when Callahan was the coach, now Saleh. I know that they aren't even in pads yet, but so far, like, are there any differences in like how the team practices compared to when they were under Callahan and now,
I love this
OTA?
question. I've gotten this question on radio a couple times too. The answer is no. It's boring. It's not the answer you're looking for. But you guys want the real
Yeah.
non-content creator, like if you were there, how you would feel answer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will blow smoke on this because they feel like there has to be you got to make a story out of it. You got to
Yeah.
take a couple of liberties. The answer is no. The answer is there isn't an OTA or a mandatory minicamp in the world that isn't 93% the same as every other one. And Robert Saleh went to the podium and said that himself multiple times. But it's true. With coaches, you're like, oh, they're probably just saying that. No, he means it on that one. It is what it is. They're doing roughly the same drills. There's a couple. Everyone's has little oddities. Like with the Callahan camps, it's like, ooh, Olga and Bertha, which people are like, they roll their eyes at that now. But it was a cool thing at the time, and
It
it
was.
was different. It was interesting.
Hmm.
And just because you have a sour taste in your mouth with the way that it went doesn't mean you need to take it out on Olga and Bertha. They didn't do anything wrong. Um, with these guys, it's like, there's some interesting Aaron White cotton drills where he's running around like a deranged ape and he's throwing tennis balls at guys. It's like, these little like that's interesting. It's an interesting drill. It's different, it's new, it's fun. Um, if I have to like pick one thing that's a little different, I do think that so Callahan's general approach seemed to be that we're going to get everybody some practice, but we're going to emphasize hydration and breaks and like staying safe out there, which is the trend of the entire league. Some
Yeah.
of these guys, some of these coaches are way more extreme than that. Like McVay and Shanahan are way more extreme than that
Yeah.
when it comes to like preseason play and stuff. And that made sense. So it was kind of like, even if you're a little dinged up or you're working through something, we'll get you some practice. With Saleh, it seems to be more of an all gas or all brakes situation that if you're dinged up even a little bit, you're pretty much out of practice. You're doing your own thing, you're rehabbing.
Yeah.
But if you are a 100% go, we are going to go hard. There's going to be less time in between. There's going to be less breaks. I'm going to try to wear you out for the next 2 hours of practice, but only if you are fully healthy.
Yeah.
So, some people are going to want to look at that and use it to paint their narrative. Like, well, Saleh's doing it the right way. No, they're just doing it two different ways.
Yeah.
They're not in pads. It's practice. No, it doesn't. As much as it would help guys like you and I for it to matter tremendously, it does not.
Does not matter at all. And then back to the quarterback room. I feel like this Will Levis situation, like, do you think this is a Malik Willis thing where they're banking on him playing well in the preseason, they trade him for some draft capital, or does he have a legitimate shot of shocking the world and being the QB2?
Shock the world. I I kind of as a reporter, I was pushing for the better part of the past year. Like both sides of the camp want the same thing here. The surgery and injury has put this on the shelf, but generally speaking, for well over since it was decided that Cam Ward was going to be the guy, which was a couple months before his draft,
Hmm.
it has been in the Levis camp's interest and the Titans' interest to find a new situation and wish each other well.
Yeah.
And that did change, and I tried my best to like make that clear again in my capacity as a reporter. Like, hey, my understanding of the situation is that things are changed. I'm going to change my tune on this, and it's because of the new coaching staff. They came in with Dable in particular, like he's giving Levis a blank slate. They are interested in what he can bring. He's a cost controlled and, in terms of raw talent, extremely talented young man who this quarterback whisperer Dable has come in and he's like, let me see what I can do. Let me get my hands on him and let's just try some stuff out this offseason. And so the desire to like offload him for anything definitely went away.
Hmm.
That being said, when will that end, right? Because we are coming up on a hard deadline where a decision is going to have to be made. Are you going to be a three quarterback team? Are you going to roster a third quarterback, which has extremely diminishing returns, other than just keeping a guy around to develop him?
Hmm.
Or are you going to face having to potentially cut Levis for nothing? Um, and I can't decide how I feel.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more I soften on my, well, no way they keep three quarterbacks take. That's kind of my default take for everybody because I think generally it's dumb for anybody to keep three quarterbacks because, again, you're just kind of burning a roster spot. But for this team in particular, number one, the only time it makes sense to me is if you have a guy who just is not ready to be your quarterback two right now. You do not want him as your backup on the field, but you do want to continue to develop him because you think there's something there. Okay, fine. Even then, it still is a roster spot, right? Well, with the Titans roster in particular, it is improving, but it is not. It is certainly not to the point where when I get to roster spots 46 through 53, if we're ranking the guys in terms of pure talent, those last five or six or seven guys, I cannot look at them in a bucket and say, well, I've got to have all seven of these guys
Hmm.
over Will Levis. It's like a total, like, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
These guys aren't good. Will Levis being on the roster isn't going to give me anything. These seven guys on the roster also probably isn't going to give me anything. So, go for whatever suits your fancy.
Yeah.
And so by that logic, I can get it some. The thing that I refuse to wrap my head around is that after all of this, they're just going to cut him. So
Uh,
I wonder if in the preseason he does put together some stuff like Willie Willis. We're reporting live from the scrimmage practice at the stadium a couple weeks from now, and we're like, man, best practice Levis has had in front of a crowd. Like, if we can honestly build that narrative because he is looking as good as he could look, and then they get a decent offer for him, maybe they soften their stance and they're like, let's just pull the plug on it now. But I can't, the two scenarios are they either build him up and trade him,
hmm.
or they keep him on the roster as a rare third quarterback. And I cannot decide which of those two things is going to happen.
Yeah.
It probably will just depend on whether or not he's awesome or if he sucks.
Yeah. And then one last question here. What do you think Gunnar Helm and like the tight end room, like what is their role going to be in this Dable offense?
Yeah, so I was looking at some of the numbers. Brian Daboll's, and again, he coached not the full season last year, obviously, but it was his offense and his personnel. The Giants last year
Hmm.
with Dable to start the year and installing things ran 12 personnel, which is two tight ends, one running back, two receivers.
Hmm.
The 30 something percent of the time. The exact number doesn't matter here. The point is that it was in the 30s. The Titans with Callahan and McCoy was something like 15%. Bottom line, it was like double the amount. He did not lean into the 13 personnel, which is three tight ends, which requires like everyone's like, well, just run 13 personnel. Well, do you have three decent tight ends? The answer for most teams is no. For the Rams, the answer was yeah, absolutely, and so they exploited that and it worked for them. But the Titans roster is not built in a way because if you have three tight ends on the field and one running back, that means you get a receiver.
Yeah.
And they did not go and
Get all those
do all of
receivers for
these. They did
nothing.
not do all of these things at receiver to just pick one of those guys to be out there on
Yeah.
a very consistent basis. They will run some 13 personnel, but again, the numbers are not fresh in my mind. It was something like 5% or something. It was very rare that the Daboll did it. I think that will be the case here
Yeah.
because the tight end room is Daniel Bellinger, who they paid to come in and play a certain role,
Yeah.
and Gunnar Helm. And Helm is the tight end one unquestionably when it comes to the receiving element of the game. Bellinger has been brought in to largely. I mean, they both are blockers, and if you're going to play like a reason the Titans didn't do a lot of 12 personnel last year, that wasn't just because Callahan and McCoy were so stupid. No, it was because they had Chikakonko on the team, who is I
Not a
won't say
great.
useless in 12 personnel. No, he is. He's very good. But in the modern NFL, what you're the reason why you're attracted to running 12 personnel is to keep the defense guessing and to dictate terms because they don't know whether you have two blockers on the field or two receivers on the
Yeah.
field or one blocker and one receiver, and so you remain mysterious. With Chigakonkwo on the field, there was no mystery. If you were in 12 personnel, they knew, okay, well, they have a blocking tight end on the field and they have a receiving tight end on the field. And that blocking tight end might go catch a ball. Gunnar Helm, he got targeted a decent amount last year. But in terms of mystery, we'll keep an eye on him. We don't have to keep an eye on Jake. We know what's going to happen there. Like
Yeah.
he's going to try to beat our guy. Our guy just needs to not get beat by that guy.
Yeah.
Um, with Bellinger and Helm, you now have that mystery again. And so it is much more attractive to run heavy personnel. I think that people are going to underestimate. I mean, based on what I've seen in practice so far, granted, early spring, all of these things, and
Hmm.
Bellinger knows the offense better than almost everybody because it's his offense
His offense. Yeah.
from New York. But he is being used in a way as a receiver and as a kind of multiple movable Joker style player in terms of alignment that makes me think people are going to underrate how big a part of the receiving game he's going to be. He's not going to be as big a part as a healthy Gunnar Helm. And
Hmm.
it's not like he and Gunnar Helm are going to like take all the targets away from the receivers, but he is not being brought in to be like Jeff Swaim. Not at all.
Hmm.
He and Gunnar are both going to be viable receiving options in the pattern, and I won't be surprised if it's like, one of the most tight end relevant seasons for the Titans since you had, I guess, peak Delaney Walker or
Yeah.
peak Jonnu Smith. Really,
Yeah.
that was unfair to Jonnu Smith. Like the best of Jonnu Smith, and even then it was like just Jonnu. You know what I mean? This will be
Yeah.
two different guys that I think are both pretty relevant.
Yeah. And then one last question here. So we know Salah's going to call the defensive plays.
Hmm.
So when you have Gus Bradley, is Gus Bradley just like a voice for Salah to like lean on, a veteran voice? He's been around for a while, coached a lot of great defenses, or is he like what is his role going to be?
Yeah, Gus is in a very similar position to where Nick Holtz was last year or the
Mhm.
last 2 years, which I was, constantly having to defend Nick Holtz's honor because when you're in that, and Holtz is not the only guy, Bradley's not the only guy. There are countless guys around the league that are in this position where you are a coordinator, but you are not the forward-facing play caller.
Yeah.
And so when you're in that position, you become a punching bag, or it's a lose-lose for you because either you're a punching bag for when things are bad, or you are entirely ignored when things are good.
Hmm.
And with Bradley and with Holtz, their role from a logistics standpoint, like what they do to make the ship run, is so much more important than we see. And it's easy to lose sight of that. But Bradley's going to be a very valuable, and like full disclosure, if they had brought in Bradley as a play caller, I would be super not happy about that. I think that he proved at his stop in Indianapolis, where we as Titans folks got the most recent up close glimpse of him.
Hmm.
I think he proved that as a play caller and as a designer, the game has passed him by a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit stuck in the mud, if I'm just being totally honest. Um, and I don't think he's as flexible as he needs to be in today's NFL. But if he is just a guy keeping the troops in line and teaching Salah's scheme and being a voice that is magnanimous and has weight and somebody that like the troops can rally around and also logistically like just during the week allows Robert Saleh to actually be the head coach and not have to be the head coach in name but really the defensive coordinator and doing all the things to like be the team, like he gets to be Saleh's avatar as the defensive coordinator, then he is a fantastic option for that because he knows exactly how to do it and he's done it for a very long time.
Hmm.
I just want I want him to be the teacher, the professor that is like following the curriculum handed to them by the university. I do not want them freelancing. Gasala, please, or Gasala, Freudian slip. Gus
Good
Bradley,
talk.
please, no freelancing. Become Gus Sala. Be Gus Sala in there, and I'm sure you'll do a great job at it.
Yeah. All right. That's gonna do it, Easton. Thank you for joining me.
Of course.
Make sure you guys follow Easton, turn on those notifications, especially when training camp starts. Follow A to Z. They've done great content for almost a decade now, I think. So shout out A to Z, shout out Easton. Excited to get this Titan season going. I mean, I feel like the hype around this team, it was high. It's been high for a lot of years, but I feel like this year it could be hopefully different with Salah.
I hope so, man. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the kind words. It was a
Mhm.
pleasure doing this.
Yes, sir. All right.